We are at Twin Rivers Park. This is the crossroad behind us. The crossroads is where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian River Lagoon, meets the St. Lucie Estuary. In 1998, the St. Lucie Estuary and the Indian River Lagoon suffered the most disastrous decline they've ever experienced. High rains in the rainy season caused the threat to the Herbert Hoover Dike's integrity, and the Army Corps, in response, according to the lake regulation schedules at the time, ordered the release of unprecedented quantities of filthy, dirty, polluted water into the estuaries. And the estuaries responded. Thousands of lesioned and dead fish floated to the surface of the rivers each day, and our residents responded in howling rage. Thousands of residents attended rallies at the St. Lucie Locks to protest the discharges. Standing room only crowds at the Blake Library witnessed as hundreds of our residents queued up behind microphones to censure the Army Corps of Engineers officers who were seated on the stage. It was the single most important issue of the time. So everyone was clamoring for results. How do we stop the discharges? How do we recover the health of the rivers? At the same time, the Army Corps was tasked with creating a plan, authorizing a plan, and implementing a plan to restore the Everglades. That plan was realized in the year 2000. It was called the Everglades Forever Act. It was federal legislation, and the plan to implement it was called the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP. Our estuaries were in such extraordinary decline that we had our own CERP component. It was called Indian River Lagoon South Plan, IRL South Plan. It was one of the first CERP components ever contemplated. It's no easy task to get congressional authorization for a CERP project. It first of all has to undergo Army Corps authorization, and the Army Corps is a notorious black hole for bureaucracy. And so the Army Corps requires countless public hearings in order to explain their projects and in order to measure public support for the projects. So in order for the Corps to advance support for a project, there had to be extraordinary public support, both from the broad public and also from the local government. So, and the Army Corps cannot lobby Congress for authorization or for funding. But if the Congress authorizes and funds an Army Corps project, the Army Corps has loads of discretion about where and how they can spend their money. So we're at this pivotal point where there are all these important public hearings that are being held in order to advance the much needed Indian River Lagoon South Plan, and needs lots of support. And after all, the project at that time in 2002 was estimated to cost $1.8 billion in state and federal funding that was just going to come to Martin County. So how many Martin County commissioners do you think showed up for those all-important public hearings? None. I know, because I was at every one of them, standing up and speaking out. So in 2004, I successfully ran for election as a Martin County Commissioner. From 2002 to 2007, I worked tirelessly to get Indian River Lagoon authorized by the Army Corps and by Congress. We were successful. It was authorized into congressional act legislation in 2007. From 2007 until the present time, I've worked also tirelessly in order to guaranteed funding, logical, predictable, robust funding from the state and federal governments to fund Indian River Lagoon South. We have been very successful. In the last 15 years, over $1.5 billion have flowed into Martin County to fund acquisitions and projects for the Indian River Lagoon from both state and federal governments. The first projects are largely engineered projects like reservoirs and stormwater treatment areas. The reservoirs consist of 4 reservoirs totaling 9,000 acres and attendant adjacent stormwater treatment areas, which are man-made wetlands, and they clean up the water. So water's pumped from the canals into the reservoirs and then are gravity fed into the stormwater treatment areas where plants remove the nutrients and send clean water into the estuaries. Those are great projects. One of them is completed, several are underway. They're necessary projects. We look forward to their completion, but they are engineered projects. They're engineered repairs, necessary engineered repairs. Also, in the intervening years, we have a new Lake Okeechobee operating schedule. It's called LOSUM, and it is a vast improvement over all of its predecessors. All of its predecessors were terrible. And this LOSUM, if it's followed correctly, will prohibit the release of discharges from Lake Okeechobee at any time except during extreme emergency conditions. Those are the only times when Lake Okeechobee water should be sent to our estuaries. The next projects, which are unique to Indian River Lagoon South, are natural lands and muck removal. And the primary goal of Everglades restoration is ecosystem restoration, and that means systemic restoration. It means that we need to look at our vast natural systems, and we need to make sure that they're in the best shape that they can possibly be, as close to historic condition as they can be. So, also one of the goals of Everglades restoration was to recreate healthy nesting habitats for the wading birds that once thrived in the Everglades until the plume hunters nearly exterminated all of them. And you can't do that in South Florida because they have used up so much of the natural ecosystem that its overdevelopment has destroyed the possibility of locating those natural lands there. But in Martin County, we've been very, very careful about sustaining our western lands, our agricultural lands. We don't allow urban development outside of those small geographic areas on the eastern portion of our county. So our western lands are really, really in good shape, and they're relatively affordable. One of the unique and remarkable components about IRL South is that there is a requirement for natural lands acquisition, 90,000 acres. And we in Martin County are well on our way toward reaching that goal. We have, in the past 3 decades, have passed 3 successful referendum for conservation lands, for sales tax to be used to buy conservation lands. At present, there are about 40,000 acres in public ownership, and we have another referendum that was passed a year and a half ago. We will continue purchasing lands, including those for Indian River Lagoon South, with those lands, with willing partners. And the last component is muck removal. As I said earlier, the Indian River Lagoon is the most biodiverse estuary in North America. It's also the most productive marine nursery ground in the United States. And there are a number of factors here that make that possible. One is our tropical subclimate, and also the salty water from the ocean mixes with the fresh water from the estuaries, creating a wonderful nursery foundation. And as you can see, the estuary is very, very wide. It's also very, very shallow. The littoral edges sloped really, really gently. The shorelines are lined with mangroves. They're not trapped in concrete bulkheads. And the bottom, the floor of the estuaries are beautiful white sand, which is the perfect substrate medium for seagrasses to thrive, except that they're not. 100 years of punishing discharges from Lake Okeechobee have smothered the estuaries with what is estimated to be 9 million cubic yards of muck. And that muck needs to be removed in order to have a healthy estuary, in order to allow the seagrass beds to be exposed and for healthy seagrasses to grow. And that's the remaining and final piece of Indian River Lagoon South. Fortunately, the Army Corps of Engineers has reaffirmed their commitment to IRL South. They said 2 weeks ago that they were prioritizing 2 SERP projects. One is IRL South, the other is SEP, where the EAA reservoir is located. And Martin County, as always, wants to be in a lead position and we are negotiating with a developer right now to donate land to create a spoil site upon which the muck can be applied. So we are moving and advancing very, very quickly and well, and agreeably with our state and federal partners, and we look forward to continuing this legacy of Everglades.